This is a quick introduction to some of the igneous textures. So when we say rock texture, what we mean is the size, shape, and arrangement of the mineral grains in the rock. This is a coarse grain texture, which is sometimes called Phaneritic. And you can see it's got large crystals, and you can see the individual grains with the naked eye. Contrast that with this one here. This is an aphaneritic texture, also known as a fine grain texture. And in this case, you're not going to be able to see very many crystals in there, at least not with a naked eye. I'm using a microscope, so maybe you can make out a few here, but typically, even with a hand lens, you won't be able to see very many crystals in this type of a rock. Okay, so we have phaneritic and aphaneritic, and then we also have a mixture of the two. So this is a porphyritic texture. And a porphyritic texture has both large and small grains in it. So you can see a few large phenocrysts, which is what the large grains are called, but a fine-grained ground mass or matrix of smaller crystals. And what this indicates is that this rock cooled slowly below the surface for a period of time, allowing the large crystals to grow, and then the smaller crystals then crystallized when it reached the surface. So large crystals indicate slow cooling, small crystals indicate fast cooling, and a mixture indicates two types of cooling. So this one is both large and small. Now another texture is Lassi. This is a glassy texture, and what you see here is basically just volcanic glass. And if that's the case, what that indicates is that there was no time for any crystals to crystallize. So this essentially quenched to a glass, from a magma straight to a glass. So that has a glassy texture. Now here is another texture, and this is a bubbly texture, and actually also a glassy texture. So if we zoom way in here maybe, whoops, and let's adjust the focus a little bit, we can see that these are actually gas bubbles. So this has both a vesicular texture and a glassy texture. So that has two textures as well. And then let's look at another one. Here's another one with both a fine grain texture and also a vesicular texture. And so you can see the gas bubbles in this one really nicely. And then the last texture that I wanted to mention is a pyroclastic texture, also known as a fragmental texture. And in this case, again, you've got some large chunks, large crystals and fine crystals, but these are broken up, so they have kind of angular little shapes to them. So that's an example of one right there. And here's another one. This has an even coarser pyroclastic texture, where you can see big chunks, I mean big, that's my finger, but pretty big chunks of broken up rock that have been stuck back together in this volcanic rock. And this is a type of rock that you would find around a volcano, because stuff around volcanoes is always getting blown up and stuck back together again. So those are our different types of textures: phaneritic, aphaneritic, porphyritic, vesicular, glassy, and pyroclastic.